All right. Good morning or evening, everyone, depending on where you are. We're going to give people just a minute or two to join. But thank you to those who joined on time. All right. I see a bunch of people popping in. Well, this is great. Welcome to From CAD to Headset in Minutes, Scaling XR Training. I am so excited today to have Jacob Soderberg, CRO of SynergyXR, and David Birch, Regional Director of Americas, with us. They're one of our partners. They create incredible immersive training experiences. So thank you guys so much for joining.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Yeah, very much. Happy to be here. Delighted.
Great. Well, I know I gave a brief intro, but why don't you all describe Synergy XR and what you all do?
All right, I'll do it short.
If that's your job.
I'm Jacob. I'm Chief Revenue Officer here at Synergy. I have been with the company closing in on 3.5 years. Obsessed with not technology, but the value and impact we provide to our clients. So I love having conversations with clients on how this technology potentially can actually make their life easier, generate more revenue, reduce costs, optimize ways of learning, and really identify the business challenges that we know the technology really can attack. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would agree with every word of that, essentially, except my name is David Birch, and I'm the Regional Director for the Americas. I'm based in Oklahoma City, but I'm here in Denmark today, where our company is based. So pleasure to be with everybody, and thank you for joining us, and thank you, Ashley.
Great. Yeah. And so, Jake, from your experience, what's driving manufacturers to explore XR now? Is it safety, cost, or workforce readiness?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of all of the above. We've kind of slowly moved from the perspective of this being new and novel technology to something that actually adds value. And but from our point, we really see that the technology delivers impact when it comes to onboarding, to safety training, to learning standard procedures somewhere away from production lines or difficult accessible remote locations. The more you can learn in a safe environment, like a meeting room or at home, the better. So you're prepared when you get there. That's really what's driving a lot of manufacturers these days to look into the technology and not only look into it, but also have the conversation with companies like us. How can we actually scale these initiatives? That's very entertaining and positive, I think. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And David, I know you've worked in the XR space for a while as well. How has it changed in the past few years? Are companies still experimenting, or has this become a core capability?
Well, it's definitely a mixed bag. So there are the companies that have been experimenting for a long time are now at scale. And so they're sort of leading the way. And so many people that are getting into it have heard of all these wonderful use cases, these great results. And so they're wanting to get into it. What's really cool now is companies they're finding out that they don't necessarily, although they can invest a huge amount into headsets and rolling those headsets out. That's without a doubt the best way to experience this sort of content, but it's not the only way. And one of the best ways to scale is to actually take the screens that everybody has, whether they be in their pocket or on their desks, and deliver that 3D or immersive content so that they can train and learn in a way that most suits them, and also scaling the content. So how can we make this to where, hey, we've seen some value? How can we make this more of a full scale? Maybe bring it in house, bring in resources, and grow that way. So it's still very much grow. It's not everybody has embraced it, but those that have really been leading the way and lifting everybody up in the process, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons we love, Synergy XR is you guys are multi-platform. So, when I explain spatial computing, it's volumetric 3D content. And that can be on any device. To your point, a fully immersive headset is the most amazing way to experience that, but you can now, your web browser can now support immersive content. You can pull that up on your Windows desktop and move around the space or hold up your phone and see it in AR. So having it multi-platform is essential to your point of scaling and making it accessible to people across the industry. I'll share my screen real quick, so we've got some fun stats for those who are new to immersive training. um, it helps, right? The stats are there. The studies have been done. PwC found it's 4 times faster to train people with immersive content compared to traditional. Arbor XR, released a study. They actually manage XR devices, so they have tons of data, but up to 275% more confident employees when trained with immersive content. Um, XR Association did their own study. There was over 50% reduction in mistakes in task and time. I know I interviewed some folks from Boeing on my podcast last year, and the reduction in errors on their manufacturing line was 80%, which is massive by being able to use XR. Um, and 71% of manufacturer leaders said there was a positive workforce impact from a study done by Cornell. So the stats are there. Would love to dive into a few of your core use cases, just so we have some real context before we dive into some demos.
Yeah. Well, one great example really is our Norwegian friends from TGS, who's a company who searches the ocean floor for potential ways to add wind turbines or oil and gas installations. So they are using the technology for really like training before you get on the vessel, which is called a ransom. It's a very strange ship to look at, but there's very long, like up to a mile long cables with a lot of tension. So you need to know what you do unless you want to be injured. And we want to avoid that. So they're doing a lot of the training actually in a very safe environment onshore. And then when they're offshore, then they know exactly what to do. That's a great example of how to use the technology and really learn the muscle memory, the different steps in how to, the picture here shows the e-bird, it's called, that's on these wires that goes into the ocean to indicate the level or the depth of the wires. So there's a lot of tension in these wires that if you don't know what you're doing, chances of getting injured are pretty high and very severe. So that's a great way of using the technology.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I mentioned this when we were prepping, but my first job was at an oil refinery. So, the oil business is extremely complex and dangerous. And, this was 20 years ago. I would have been a lot more comfortable learning in a virtual environment, but instead of just getting thrown out there, you
Yeah.
know. So that's incredible. Uh,
Making mistakes is free. It's really the idea.
Yeah.
yeah. And then we had one more of your case studies I thought
Yeah.
was really fascinating.
Yeah, that's another. So what, where the one is that the first one, TGS, very focused on safety and reducing incidents. I mean, the second one is as well, but it's also optimization around the production line. So when you need to, in this case, Isover, they're training lockout tagout procedures on the production line and only during plant downtime windows, which is not as often as it should be, or actually production line should run 24/7.
Right.
So in order to do that, it's like one 2 hour window every 2 weeks in the middle of the night, because that's when production is slow. But by removing that from the production line into a meeting room, putting on a headset, go through the entire 75 steps of doing the lockout tagout procedure, you can remove people from the production line and into a safe environment. And again, like we said, also the statistics and data from PwC and the other Cornell, I mean, people remembers in a completely different way after having a headset on. And I had a fun episode with someone completely off the production line. She was working in marketing, never been at the production line. She took the training. It's like 20 minutes. And 3 weeks later, we met again, and she was able to walk me through every single step of the lockout tagout procedure because she experienced it herself.
I think that's the key too. It's like, it's not just retaining that knowledge, but it's having the confidence to then take that knowledge and put it into practice. As this, your anecdote suggests, and the data certainly does as well. When people have this, they retain it. And then if they remember, it's a memory. And so they can literally like, oh yeah, Jake, I remember that.
Yeah.
She probably hadn't done it since. So imagine if this was your job.
Yes.
So people are seeing tremendous confidence in retaining and actually applying that knowledge, which makes it's a game changer. People say that all the time, but it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's important too, where some of these best applications of the technology are. So, we've heard repetitive tasks, being able to learn them quickly because you can measure ROI, and that ROI scales because it affects so much of the business because it happens all the time. But there's also those use cases where they are very rare. They rarely happen. Maybe only one person in your business knows how to do it. And if they're out or, leave the company, then that knowledge transfer is gone. So just, for companies out there thinking about where would they start, those are some good use cases to think about in your business where are tasks repetitive and you need to train a high volume of people, but then the complete opposite of like what is something that barely happens and does only one or two people in your company know how to do it. Um, but clearly the value is there, right? So, we often see manufacturers who maybe tested it out, ran a great proof of concept, but then got stuck because either they couldn't maintain the content or they lacked the processes to keep the experience current. Where do you all see projects stall and what are those root causes?
Well, I think it really is part of the reason why we're here on this discussion today is we can't get access to the 3D content, or we don't control it, or it's not in the right format, or it's too complex. Honestly, we see that a lot because, without that, what's the point of having a training or the ability to create a training if you don't have the assets by which the training is required? So there's that. And I mentioned it a second when I mentioned sort of at the top, which is we don't have X amount of XR headsets. And we feel like that's a precursor to success. We must have that. And that's by far, like I mentioned, the best way to learn, retain, and apply that knowledge. But you don't necessarily need to go that route. And so when companies understand that, and a plug for us, obviously, SynergyXR provides a unified experience regardless of the device by which you're accessing the content. So I can be a line worker that just has a phone or a tablet or needs to go access a computer. I can learn or I can be refreshed really easily, or I can go to a training room or pull out my XR headset and have that fully immersive experience. So meeting the clients where they are, use the technology, the devices that you've got today, use them to your fullest, and you'll see that it takes you very, very far. So getting that across, getting that message across and having them understand that can be really beneficial to stopping projects from stalling. So further scale space.
Definitely.
That's a long-winded answer. Apologize. We don't have a ton of time.
No, that's good. And you mentioned 3D, right? So I think it's important to have that executive team buy-in to help connect those silos in the company that there often are. So the engineering team generally has the 3D data. 3D models of your products are what is required to create immersive training content. And it's a waste of time and money if you're recreating that from scratch. We see often people have hired agencies, they're recreating 3D models, you have them. It doesn't make sense. And so being able to connect those two teams together and then streamline that content. And that's, where we love working with you all. And so we can jump in just to the live demo now of how we kind of do this, from CAD to headset in minutes, and then jump into questions. But I'll share my screen really quickly. So, you know, this is the alphabet soup of 3D files you might be working with. So from engineering teams, we have kind of the standard files. And then you've got the Siemens, Dassault, Autodesk specific files, or PTC, generally are what people are working with. Often, these are non-tessellated files. So they will not work just to drop into a web or game engine environment, which is where these like interactive experiences are built. And so this is one of the big things that we help do. So with Ventana, you can upload any of those assets. We'll automatically create a tessellated version that's optimized. So this boat was a step file. We automatically created an optimized GLB, USD, and FBX. So you can really go anywhere on any device. GLB you need for web and Android phones, USD for Apple, and then we give an FBX in case people want to build custom experiences. But this is kind of our secret sauce down here. So this was 2.6 million polys down to 100,000 or about a million, over 200 megabytes down to 9.4. But we can preserve, all the parts and metadata with your asset. And then I'll pop into desalt is the asset. So here's another fun one, and this is something that we did for this exact demo. So this asset, same thing, fully optimized. If I hit edit, we have a lot of different optimization options. We've pre-made different settings and presets, so it's easy. So if it's an industrial asset, choose industrial. You might have 3D scans of your environments. You can also preserve meshes and UVs if you're wanting to edit and explode that content later. And then you can set desired polygon limits and everything. I'm going to make sure my Draco compression is off, and I'm just going to save a preset. So now I don't need to even worry about the settings. I can just choose that next time. And now I've got, my optimized asset.
Yep.
So yeah, I'll turn it over to Jacob to show how
Yeah.
you can then take this, drop it into
Yep.
Synergy and build an
Just gonna
experience.
repeat the last step you just showed, because I want to make sure we have a really fresh version of this. Am I sharing the right screen now?
Yep.
Missing the little green edge, but it looks, if you say it's okay, then we're fine. So here's the same object. I'm just gonna hit the download button here. I'm just gonna make sure that I'm downloading the GLB and download, and here we go. I'm gonna jump to my backend here, my Ventana webinar backend. I'm gonna upload the downloaded file that I just had. Here, let's go downloads. Here's the apparatus, 17 o'clock, 17 minutes. That's the latest one. I'm gonna say open. So now Synergy is looking into this file, checking it for a lot of things, making sure that it actually works on different devices. Since we do have a unified experience across different devices, we look into, will this run okay on a Quest 2, Quest 3, on an old phone, stuff like that.
Apple Vision Pro.
Apple Vision Pro, it's got a little more compute power than a Quest 2. No offense, Quest 2. But so that's kind of the 35 seconds of preparation that's going on here. Let's just let's give it another name. Let's say Ventana webinar demo, and say upload. It's still just making the final checks here. Yes, now we're ready to upload. And now it's uploading to the back end. So anywhere in the world, actually, you could be back in Oklahoma right now, and you could open a session on Synergy, and you could have access to it. So I'm going to jump into Synergy.
Not, but I could.
It would be a lot warmer there. So let's just remove this real quick. Here we go and show the real one. That's the old. Remove up. All right, so I'm just gonna go over here. I'm gonna open my backend here. Here's the fresh version of the apparatus we have here. It says that, hey, it's a little complex inside here. It may run a little unsmooth on certain devices, but I'm okay with that here on my Mac. So here we have it. And now we could actually invite people in and we could walk around this and give people an introduction to what is this product? How does it work? And again, from a step file to something that's in a VR environment, and we could meet together and we could walk around this and have a conversation about the different elements. That's actually how easy it is to get from something very complex to something that works in a VR device. And actually, you mentioned that CAD and engineering, they already have access to these files, but the use in a VR setting, we don't need all the details inside the product. We need the outside. We don't need all the magic and the hidden IP secrets. We just need enough to show people how do you do maintenance on this product. We don't need all the little fine details on the inside of the tank.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in that preset I made, remove obstructed geometry is one of the settings we have. And that comes up a lot of course, this is your IP. This is extremely important to keep confidential. Well, engineering can upload to VNTANA. We can automatically remove all the internals. That's just a check the box. So
Yeah.
then the training team only has access to the parts that they need.
Yeah. Actually, I want to show just real quick because we did a procedure on the same thing, and this is a very simple procedure where we just kind of, if I'm on my own and I just want to get introduced, I could put on a headset, I can open my computer, I could use my phone, and I could simply just say start procedure. I'm just gonna
procedure. This procedure can be made without any 3D modeling tools such.
There we go. So in a very short amount of time, I think one of our guys, he spent a couple of hours doing this. So really, okay, I can go here. I can learn a little bit about the main vessel. I can click, I can learn and move on and so forth and so on. Move down here. Oh, there's some more information. There's a voice here that tells me what to do, but in order to not get echo and all that, here's some basic information. It took less than 2 hours to get from complex step file to here's a procedure that really shows everything about this product. So I think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and so with your software to build this, it's no code. You're just like dragging and dropping from that side panel, is what I understand, to create this walkthrough, which is pretty great. And it can be multiplayer, so you can be
Yes.
with someone virtually and walking around, because I know that comes up as a
Yeah.
question a lot. Um,
We've been looking for something like this for a very long time because getting access to these 3D objects, it is, like you said earlier,
It's a roadblock.
it's a roadblock.
Yeah.
Yeah. And companies want to work with their own content because now, again, if we're getting buy-in from executives, they want to see their own content and not some generic content from someone else. So
yeah.
I'm really glad that you exist. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, yeah, I mean, this is a great example of how manufacturers can shorten the time from engineering design to immersive training, moving from days or weeks to even a couple, minutes or hours, as you said.
Yeah.
Um, if you had to summarize one key capability manufacturers should invest in early to ensure XR scalability, what would that be? What are your kind of best practices of getting started?
Well, I think it's identifying in this case, really. Now, we've talked to some groups. It used to be in the past that people would think of, hey, we want to use XR for sales, for marketing, customer facing, big, wonderful things. And that's great. But the reality is that most companies that really takes hold in groups that, hey, let's identify a use case that helps people, that saves arms, saves lives, that reduces downtime. Sounds kind of grim, but find something like that because it's easy to take the assets, be it VNTANA into SynergyXR, create a training around that, a procedure around that, and then deliver that seamlessly to any device. I know it sounds like a shameless plug, but really, if people want to get started, start there and you'll be surprised how it impacts the workforce and then just naturally through sort of a grassroots campaign almost spreads throughout the rest of the organization as a whole. We've seen that regardless of how siloed and segmented the organization is, you find that use case and do it well, it will grow. And so that's the way we typically recommend our clients solve those problems.
Yeah, and I would say, it's that use case. What is something that has clear ROI for the business that is bite size, right? So often when we talk to people, especially if they're coming from sales and marketing, they want perfection and realism and AAA game level experience.
Yeah,
And it's like, yes, that's all possible with time and budget. Whereas
Yeah,
especially for training, if your goal is just to be able to explain a complex product, walk someone through, it doesn't need to be a AAA game level quality. But you need the accurate 3D asset and the accurate parts. So I just mentioned that as, you know, sometimes people get sucked into perfection of what things look like,
yeah,
which is subjective. And at the
oh,
end of
yeah,
the day, it's about
totally.
how does it work?
yeah, yeah.
Um, and for teams, just beginning their journey, what's like a small but high impact first step they could take?
Well, sounds like we're repeating each other, but identifying the first really high impact, high volume use cases is
Yeah.
very important. That's what we spend a lot of time with the early conversations with new clients to help them identify that one. Because oftentimes, especially if it's innovation teams who are looking for new technology, they have some pretty exotic ideas sometimes. And we try to, yeah, that's great. Let's think big, but let's start small with something that really hits the value button
Yeah.
early on. And then we can expand into more exotic use cases like sales and marketing, virtual showrooms, AR product catalogs.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily bringing in value from the very early days. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much for joining. I'll open it up for questions. I've got more, but if anyone has questions, feel free to type in the chat or raise a hand. Great. Um, and as that's coming up, I mean, a question that I have is, how do you see this evolving? You mentioned it, and I agree, it's so important that you have content that works on multi-device, so meet people where they are, laptops, tablets, as well as headsets. But where do you see this going? I mean, now that Google and Samsung just launched Android XR, with the Galaxy XR headset, it looks, very similar to the Apple Vision Pro, but about half the cost, typical of like the the Android version. But yeah, would love to hear what headsets are you seeing people use? What would you advise people to start with?
Um,
It's hard to make
Yeah.
it's hard to make a hardware recommendation.
yeah.
I'd say start with whatever fits your budget.
Yeah.
We were talking, we think, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of MetaQuest, and I think they make a great product at a great and reasonable price, somewhere around $500 in Europe and running.
So,
It's a great product to a great quality actually. I mean, if you have a lot of money, Apple Vision is great.
yeah, but for scalability,
Yeah.
if they're easy to replace, definitely go with a MetaQuest 3 or a Pico or something like that. You can't go wrong, for sure. But regarding the new players, very excited to see what
Yeah.
they actually bring to the market. I think it'll be substantial. It's good to see the continued investment in the space as a whole. And speaking of continued investment, we still think that AR is the next big thing, but everybody's still waiting for that. They're on their way.
Yeah.
But we're everybody's optimistic about that, including ourselves. We do support AR today, and
Yeah.
other that's all I'm doing is putting I'm not meaning to. But we just have a lot of optimism. We're just not sure where the market's going to land on that, but when it does, that's going to be a big differentiator to the landscape today. Forgive me,
Yeah.
there's a dog scratching right behind me. It's
Yeah, and I'm, excited about how AI is going to help accelerate that because a lot of it has been, or at least, what I've seen in my years working the space is the difficulty in creating content. And so the more that we bring down those barriers, make it easy, and AI is definitely going to help that. And when we say that, it's not just creating 3D models, it's being able to have, interactive guided sessions where, different users could even ask different questions and get different responses. So
Yeah.
uh, great. Well, no questions. Looks like you answered everything. Thank you both so much for joining. This was great. We love working with you all. And if anybody has
Yeah.
questions, where can they find you?
Well, the website synergyxr.com is a great way to the fans access to us.
Yeah.
Happy to share our email addresses when we I don't know if we send out a little follow-up email from this session. Happy to share my email address.
Yeah, same
Yeah.
here. So we'll
Great.
do that.
Yeah,
We
and
usually say
they've
that
got
all good
even
all good potential deals starts with an open conversation. Let's see if the technology is there for you. So
yeah,
let's start there.
and great. Yeah, and they've got a lot more great case studies on their website if you're interested in learning just how various manufacturers are using this technology. So, hope everyone has an awesome day.
Thanks, everybody.
Talk soon.
Take care. Bye bye.